the near future. And I want to be in a position where my business model is not opening 1,000 locations and burning billions of dollars annually. I want to reach a point where this is starting to print money before we go to national scale in the US.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. This one is going to be amazing. We're going to be talking about drone deliveries from somebody who sent a spaceship to the moon. Literally. Meet Yariv Bash, the co-founder and CEO of Flytrex and founder of SpaceIL. Yariv Bash is the CEO and co-founder of Flytrex, a drone technology company providing comprehensive autonomous drone delivery solutions that enable any business, from small businesses to e-commerce giants, to integrate instant autonomous drone delivery into their offering. Flytrex is an end-to-end drone logistics solution spearheading the drone revolution. Prior to Flytrex, Yariv was the founder and CEO of SpaceIL, a $100 million Israeli non-profit organization that attempted to land Beresheet, the first private interplanetary robot mission on the moon. Yariv Bash, the CEO of Flytrex, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Thank you, Michael. As usual, I'm great as usual. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. So many exciting things happening with Flytrex. Such an honor to be part of the journey and to see, the future unfolding before our eyes. I think about Flytrex all the time, and the picture behind you I think is a great ode to the amazing things that you're doing, already operating in production in the United States, delivering food across houses, with some really exciting milestones achieved over the last recent while with an incredible fundraising round, as well as some incredible authorization from the FAA to be able to fly the drones at a much greater capacity than before, and a really monumental achievement for the industry as a whole. So Yariv, I'd love to spend these 20 minutes understanding a little bit better what's happening with Flytrex and what's happening with the drone delivery market today in the beginning of 2022.
It looks like things are progressing nicely. We've been in this business for quite a while now, 8 years. And when we started, people were like, wow, drone deliveries, that's going to be, that's in the distant future. But right now, we're already starting to see the, initial commercial operations, both in the US and in other areas around the world. And we think that we're going to see that starting to expand pretty rapidly in the next year or two. So it's actually happening.
So take me back a little bit to the challenges of the drone delivery market, because it's a really complicated concept. That one that is, on one hand, revolutionizing consumer behavior. On the other hand, it's infinitely complex in order to get us there. So what's happening?
So I like to give an example from the medical world. And, you can order a few chemicals online, go to a high school lab and create something. But from there to certifying that thing as a medicine, it's a very long journey. And it's the same with drones. I mean, we can, people tell me, your drones are pretty horrible. They can only fly a few miles away and carry 3 kilograms or 6.5 pounds. Here are drones that can carry 20 kilograms to 100 kilometers. But it doesn't really matter. I can produce such a drone in my lab, in our labs, in a week or so. The hard part is not attaching the carbon parts together. The hard part is certifying a commercial airplane. And when it comes to that, we're nearing the end of a very long journey. And in 2022, we're going to see the first few companies, including Flytrex, with certified commercial unmanned airplanes flying above our heads.
Incredible.
So we're getting there pretty fast.
So in order for us to understand where you're at now and why these two announcements that you've made recently are so monumental, take me back a little bit into this long, incredible journey of Flytrex, just in bits and pieces, just so that we have context as to why it really is so monumental where we're at today.
So basically, until now, every commercial pilot that you've seen, especially with drone deliveries, was pretty much very much limited anywhere around the world. It's mostly about flying to a few houses for a few days, not flying above people. It was very limited because it was based on waivers and exemptions around the current regulatory framework, which is very limited because the aviation authorities anywhere around the world, they're not really, looking at your drone or your airplane. They're just, doing minimal certification for the operator, usually a few days, and you're good to go. And you can buy a drone from China. You can assemble it in your backyard. Nobody inspects it. It's not really an airplane. So all approvals were pretty much limited. Now, back in 2018-19, the FAA said, okay, we're approaching real, actual, very, complex commercial drone operations, such as drone deliveries. And we have to build a framework for that. And that's what we've been doing since basically 2018, working with the FAA, with the Federal Aviation Administration, on basically certifying our system as if it was a commercial airplane. And that's a very different process than, a few days of training and you're good to go. But because it's such a lengthy and rigorous process, the approvals that you can get are basically like a commercial airplane. And it's not a 0 to 1. As we're nearing the end of that process, we're already starting to get approvals, still waivers and exemptions. It's still not a blanket for operations, national operations, but we are getting approvals that you cannot get with a, off-the-shelf drone or something that you've just, built in your backyard or in a lab. It's the kind of approvals that signal to the market and to Flytrex that we're on the right path towards the large-scale approval.
So I think it's hard for an outsider like myself to really understand the complex process it is to get this FAA approval. But so just for the context, your team that is considerably smaller than a lot of your competitors, right? Team that's based in Tel Aviv, working with the United States FAA authorities to do this. Just paint me a little bit of a picture about what this is like for you as the CEO to lead through this endeavor. And you're standing alongside giants like Amazon and Google, and you're right there with them getting those same approvals.
So I think the first thing was to get into the mindset of the FAA. And it's very different than, working with anyone in Israel, for instance. It's a very different mindset. You have to be, as strict as possible because that's how you're measured, and you can't bluff, and you have to do everything by the book, and that's okay. This is the big game, and if you want to play in the big game, you have to follow those rules. And we basically built a whole regulatory team here in Israel from scratch, working with the FAA. We're talking about thousands of pages of manuals, from our maintenance manual to our flight manual to our concept of operations. It's really, we've more than a year ago, we printed out all the documentation. It was, a few thousands of pages.
You showed it to me when I came. It's incredible. It looks like the whole Harry Potter series put together.
Well, that's how it works in aviation. You cannot bluff that. It has to be, it's commercial aviation. I think it's tougher than, even medical approvals. There are less aviation companies, there are medical companies, so it's hard. But if you follow the rules and you realize that this is a marathon, this is not a sprint, then you can make it to the other side, hopefully.
So the end of 2021, we're entering now 2022. Some incredible milestones that are pretty significant for the way that Flytrex is now positioned from a company that is attempting to prove the viability of commercializing drone delivery to a company that is now starting its growth stage and actually going and doing it and watching the fruits of their hard work. What are these two things that happened recently, and why are they so monumental to what's happening?
So basically, we've received an approval from the FAA to fly in all three locations up to 1 mile away, which allows us to start making, deliveries to almost 2 orders of magnitude more customers than until now.
Wow.
We can now we've got 3 stations working every day in North Carolina, and we can service up to almost 10,000 families in those locations. And that's already something that's working. It's not a very limited pilot. We've got customers that are dependent on us. They want to get their hamburger or their pizza delivered, and when they're not getting it on time, they're frustrated. And we're starting to see actual traction, actual commercial traction. It's still the early days. We still have a lot to learn. It's still just scratching the potential in each one of those stations, because once you go, for instance, from 1 mile to 2 mile, you basically quadruple the size that you can service in the number of families. So we're still just scratching the surface, but it's already happening on a daily basis. The evening of the New Year's was, I think, the peak day for us. We actually closed earlier than usual because of New Year's Eve, but I think that was the best day in terms of the deliveries performed. So it's going from a company that does regulations and mostly technology to a company that handles marketing, B2C, customer success. It's a very different company, but it's another challenge, and we love challenges. So
I love it. With that. And obviously, 2021 has seen the growth of some incredible companies in the delivery space, a lot of them offering 10, 15 minute on foot, or by bike grocery delivery. But a lot of the things that I keep thinking about is, okay, how, where is the moat of these companies, and how can we really tell, who is here to stay and who's not, and where's the technology lie, and where's the differentiation? And obviously, I think, how many years would you say that you were working on the regulation and the technology side before going to the commercialization?
So it's roughly 4 to 5 years, and
Wow.
It's not going to get easier. Regulations are only going to get harder, and it's not like we're paving the way. I mean, we're going into the regular type certification process of the FAA. So it doesn't matter if you're Flytrex from Tel Aviv or Boeing from Seattle. It takes you 4 to 5 years, even if it's your 20th airplane. But you touched about an interesting point. You've mentioned all those 15 to 20 minute grocery deliveries. But we have to realize that at the end, all those companies are working on a niche market in the US. Most of the US population is in the suburbs, and all those companies are basically working in densely populated areas in major cities. But in the US, that's the the smaller market. The bigger one is the suburbs, and over there, those services just it doesn't make sense for them to work. The population density isn't big enough, isn't high
Share
enough.
with me a little bit more of that, because I think this is a surprising fact that also caught me by surprise when I learned it the first time. When I think of the US, I think New York, San Francisco, Austin, Texas. What is the real US from now a geographical and transportational perspective?
So basically, most of the US, roughly 2/3 of the population, live in private houses in the suburbs. We're talking about more than 80 million backyards. And that's where the major market is at. And until today, most of those companies have been focused on highly populated areas, because that's where the unit economy of using humans work. You can you can optimize the service. You can pick up a few orders. Your couriers can use bikes or walk by foot. But once you go to the suburbs, you cannot optimize, because all the restaurants are spread too thin. You have to use a car. Your couriers have to use the car, so the insurance rates and maintenance, the gas, everything costs a lot more. And that's where the model for a typical on-demand service just breaks down.
Right.
And using drones, that's I'm not the best user experience for customers in apartment buildings, but I am the best user experience for the major part of the US, which is the suburbs.
Right, and honestly, I'm walking around Tel Aviv, and I can already picture Kikar Rabin with a place where the drones are putting in the food. So, but we'll leave that for a conversation in a few years. The second big announcement, Yariv, was your most recent financing round, which I think speaks also to your growth stage and moving from the regulation now to also commercialization. What was happening over there?
So we've just announced a $40 million round, which brings the total amount raised until now by Flytrex to $60 million. And the goal of this round is to actually start deploying stations and to start showing, I won't say profits, but to start showing how we can break even in those stations. So, which is, the holy grail for every on-demand company in the world, basically. And the goal for us is to show that this is not something, I want to show that this is in the near future. And I want to be in a position where my business model is not opening 1,000 locations and burning billions of dollars annually. I want to reach a point where this is starting to print money before we go to national scale in the US. It's not an easy goal, but we want to reach, we want to be nearing that position where it's just, tell me, I'll tell you how many stations I want to open, and you'll tell me how much money you can give us to do that. So it's going to take about a year to two to reach that point, but we're already starting to focus as a company on that.
So what is that like, switching the hats from Yariv, the maker, the technologist that is creating these incredible drones and is getting FAA approval as if he's the CEO of Boeing right now, because you are doing the same things as Boeing is doing, and all of a sudden now it's Yariv, the businessman, trying to optimize the unit economics and prove to the world that this is a viable business that can print money. How do you balance those two hats?
Well, we've always had that in the back of our heads. So our drones, for instance, they're very crappy. If you look at the technical specs of our drones compared to others, they have the shortest distance, but they were built in a way to justify a $5 burrito delivery. You cannot perform on-demand delivery with a BMW or a shiny brand new Tesla. It requires a different kind of vehicle for those kind of deliveries. And that was always in the back of our heads as we designed the drones and the entire system. The entire system is built for recurring B2C deliveries with minimally trained operators, just doing the minimal amount of actions needed to operate the system. So it was always in the back of our minds, but now it's time to prove that it works on increasing scales. Anything that's related to B2C and marketing, that's, it hasn't been in our focus. It's becoming our focus these days. New KPIs, new metrics. It's, it's refreshing, I'll put it that way. We're up for the challenge, and we're actually happy to, it's not a pivot, but to expand our horizons, I'll put it that way.
What is the single thing you're most excited about, moving forward? You're entering 2022, running this incredible company, achieving things that so many have tried, and I'm personally so honored and excited to be such a small part of it, but I'm still so excited about it. So what are you most excited about?
Making the deliveries, seeing the customers' responses. We get like videos that people post on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn of happy customers, and it's seeing it in action every day. That's an incredible experience. I get a report. We all get a report every day of all the comments of every user, what they liked, what they didn't like. So just seeing it in action every day. That's the fun part of the system. After working on it for so many years just in the field without actual customers, so it's very it's pretty cool. And now for us, the exciting part is just growing the amount of deliveries and families that we can service. And basically writing the book on how do you open a station, how do you market it, how do you get to as many people and make them order as much as possible. Just creating a service that people love and like to use almost daily.
Yariv, this is so inspiring, and I can only imagine what it's like working so hard for 4 or 5 years on this incredible technology and regulation side of things, and all of and now being able to commercialize it and seeing the responses from the customers. And so, best of luck in 2022. I can't wait to continue following Flytrex and seeing how you're literally revolutionizing consumer behavior at such a great scale, and it's going to be incredible. Thank you very much, and best of luck.
Thank you, Michael. Hopefully, I will be able to deliver to your apartment or house as well in the next year or two.
Wonderful. Bye, Yariv. תודה.